exciting question. Why and with what consequences did the U.S. relations with the states, Central America, and the Caribbean change between the 1840s and the 1890s?
Policies towards Mexico, 1846 through 1920. The U.S. didn't like the fact that Mexico had a monarchy. Archduke Ferdinand Maximilian was the king at the time and was executed by Benito Juarez, the president of the Mexican Republic. Woodrow Wilson sent troops and navy to Mexico to protect the U.S. interests and restore order. Woodrow Wilson refused to recognize the military dictatorship of General Victoriano Huerta, who had seized power in 1913 and planned to assassinate the next Mexican president. In March 1916, President Wilson ordered General John J. Pershing to pursue Villa into Mexico. President Carranza eventually protested the American presence in Mexico. In January 1917, the growing possibility of the U.S. entering World War I caused Wilson to withdraw Pershing's troops from Mexico.
Policies towards Cuba, 1897 through 1940. Because of the close proximity Cuba has to the United States, it became increasing interest. Cuba was trying to revolt against Spain in 1868, and because the U.S. had already broke off of England, they had felt sympathy for Cuba. Cuba has many economic resources that the U.S. also wanted. The U.S. wanted to spread Christianity around Central America. The U.S. sent a ship called Maine to Cuba in order to protect Cuba and the U.S. soldiers, but the ship ended up exploding, killing millions. U.S. blamed Spain, even though the ship exploded because of the fire inside of the ship.
Burrito break.
Any rice or beans?
Yeah, I'll have rice and black beans.
And black beans?
Yeah.
Any meat?
Steak.
What else? Cheese, pico, lettuce?
Yeah, just pico
Just
and
pico?
lettuce. Yeah.
Is that all?
Yes.
Alright. Any chips in the drink with that?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
The Banana Wars. The banana was a major crop in Central America and the Caribbean countries. All of these countries became very politically unstable, and the U.S. intervened militarily to restore prior order. This also helped American businesses to flourish. Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was a Spanish colony that had some independence. In 1898, it was invaded by American troops and eventually surrendered. Under the Organic Act of 1900, Puerto Rico was administered under the U.S. It developed more peacefully than Cuba and was less important to the U.S. both strategically and economically. In 1917, it was given a legislature and the citizens were granted U.S. citizenship without becoming a U.S. state. Panama. Panama is a country between North and South America, which is very narrow. In the 1860s, U.S. Secretary William Seward tried to negotiate with Colombia, which then owned Panama, and he was stopped by the Senate. Panama gained independence in 1903, and the U.S. bought part of the Panama where the canal would be built. To half the distance a ship needed to travel to its destination, and also making the new republic protectorate. The Panama was finished in 1914 with U.S. engineering and money, and played a big part in developing the U.S. as a Pacific power.
Dollar diplomacy. Dollar diplomacy was a term that was invented by William Howard Taft. This was used to describe the UN foreign policy of advancing American business interests, even if military force was needed to achieve it. Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic was another example of how the U.S. used their police power in order to gain an advantage. In 1905, Roosevelt sent troops over there to prevent Europeans from taking and trying to collect the debt that was owed to them. The reason that the U.S. was so interested in the Dominican Republic was that it was a place that they could reform and use that advantage and land. After a while, the Dominican Republic became a U.S. protectorate. Nicaragua and Haiti. The U.S. turned their sights toward Nicaragua because of the close proximity to the soon-to-be Panama Canal and the U.S. This meant that it would be viewed as colleague to the Monroe. With all the conflicts with nearby countries, the president went into serious debt. The U.S. stepped in 1912 to make it a U.S. protectorate. Soon after, the U.S. fleet and the Marines moved in. The U.S. managed everything that went on in the country. The military moved out later in 1930. American business interests continued to flourish. Haiti underwent the same process. The country was failing economically and the debts piled up. The U.S. military came in 1915 and left in 1934. During the time, over 10,000 people were killed. Soon after, a U.S. protectorate was established and ruled. Haiti underwent the same process. The country was failing economically and the debts piled up. The U.S. military came in 1915 and left in 1934. During this time, over 10,000 people were killed. Soon after a U.S. protectorate was established, the U.S. ruled it with great brutality. The events that occurred finally led to the Good Neighbor policy. This was created by Roosevelt to make it to where he respected the rights of other nations in America. It also put an end to all the U.S. protectorates that were established prior to them.